From the News Channel 5 Network, this is SportsLine.
Hey there, SportsLine on your television. Steve Layman here with you. Glad you are here with us on this Tuesday night on News Channel 5 Plus. So many things to dive into. And let's start right with the Titans. We talked about it last night with Derrick Henry's injury. Let's talk about it again because there's a lot to discuss. Our phone lines are open as always here on the program. 737-7767. Call us up. What do you think this means for Derrick Henry? What do you think this means for the Titans moving forward? He had surgery today. We are told it went well. So now the rehab process begins. And as we talked to Dr. David Chow last night on the program here, Pro Football Doc, as he is known in many circles, he told us that when you look at the typical recovery time, which can be as short as 6 weeks and as long as 14 weeks, but more typically it's in the 8 to 10 to 11, 12 week type of range. He said bet the over on that when you're looking at Derrick Henry because of his size and because of the workload you ask a running back to take on in the National Football League, especially a guy as important to his team as Derrick Henry is to the Titans. So for those people out there saying 8-week timetable, he could be back in 8 weeks, Dr. Chow says slow down, maybe a little bit longer than that. And it's okay if it is a little bit longer than that, if it means he's ready to go when he comes back. Because that's the other issue you've got to deal with here. It's not just about getting Derrick Henry back on the field. It's getting Derrick Henry back to an MVP caliber level where he was at before the injury. Because if the Titans are going to have a real shot at competing for the Super Bowl this year, they need that. Derrick Henry carried them at the beginning of this season. Julio Jones has been out with injuries. A.J. Brown had a slow start and has battled some injuries. Ryan Tannehill has not been as efficient as he had been the last couple of years. That due in large part to the struggles or stories of the two individuals I mentioned before at the wide receiver position. The offensive line's given up a bunch of sacks, but the passing game has not, up until the last few weeks, really looked anything like we expected it to do for the Titans. The guy who exceeded all expectations really for 7 games before he broke that foot early in the first quarter on Sunday in Indianapolis, and oh, by the way, finished the game. The one guy that has exceeded all expectations has been Derrick Henry. He was averaging, when he got hurt, 27 carries per game and more than 100 yards per game. On pace to come right up against that 2,000-yard mark again this season. And he only dipped under that because he only ran for 68 yards in the game against the Colts on Sunday. This has been a historic pace that he's been on for workload, for production, for scoring. And when you look at the Titans' offense, Derrick Henry makes up about 80% of the running game. He is the running game. And so now, how do you move on? Because you're going to have to go for the foreseeable future without him. Can't imagine it's anything less than 8 weeks, which would be 7 games. Pretty good likelihood it's going to be more than that, or at least if you do get him back for those final 2 games of the regular season, he's going to be limited. He's going to be working his way back into peak form to try to be ready to go for the postseason. So how do the Titans make up that difference? This is a league and this is a team that certainly goes by this mantra, that it's a next man up philosophy. Somebody goes down, you got to step in, you got to do the job. That's not the case here. No one guy can step in and be Derrick Henry. If he could, he wouldn't be here because he'd be somebody else's featured back. Derrick Henry is in a class by himself. And so when it comes to trying to replace him, the Titans understand this isn't about the next man up. This is about the next several guys up. This is about a running back room giving them enough to keep the running game going, enough to keep defenses honest so the passing game can really take over now. And it's about everybody else on the team stepping up and doing a little bit more. When you lose an MVP candidate like Derrick Henry, everybody else has to do more. Ryan Tannehill has to start playing like he played last year, like he played the year before that. A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, they need to be healthy and they need to be big-time performers in the passing game. Anthony Firkser needs to step up in terms of the pass catching from the tight end position. This offensive line, much ballyhooed coming into the season, they've run block pretty well. Haven't always been great in pass blocking. They need to be great down the stretch of the season. And the defense that has been much improved this year has to continue to play at a high level. They have to continue to get the turnovers that we saw on Sunday. They have to be able to affect the quarterback, as we've seen the last few weeks, by getting pressure. And they're going to have to hold up in the back end, despite some injuries, despite the way this league is structured to allow teams to pass. The defense has to hold on. But to me, when I look at the Titans over the next couple of weeks, next several weeks, really, yes, everybody's going to want to see how they manage the running back situation. And they've got 4 guys back there. Jeremy McNichols, the only guy on the team who has carried the ball this season in the NFL. He has 7 carries for the Titans. Dontrell Hilliard, who they signed last week, so he's been around the building for just over a week now. No carries this year. Dante Foreman, who was a backup here last year, had some bright spots as a backup for Derrick Henry, and now comes back as a member of the practice squad, signed just today, along with the official signing of Adrian Peterson, a guy who is headed to the Hall of Fame. He's run for nearly 15,000 yards in his career. But Adrian Peterson was the MVP of the league in 2012, a full 9 years ago. He's now 36. And when he takes the field on Sunday night, as we all assume he will for the Titans, he will begin a 14th NFL season. So what exactly can you expect? Remember, we said that Henry was averaging 27 carries a game. Last year in Detroit, Adrian Peterson averaged 9. Can you up that a tick or two? Yeah, probably, especially for a half season. And you got a motivated Adrian Peterson at that. But you're not getting 27 carries out of any of these guys. So can you get 10 to 12 from Peterson? Can you get 5 to 6 from McNichols and the third down back that he has been effective as for this team? Dante Foreman give you a few carries? The thing about Foreman and Peterson is they are Henry-like. They are big backs. Neither one of them at this point has anything like the breakaway speed that Henry has. But they're big backs that can go between the tackles and get you some hard yards. That's what the Titans need them to do here. And between the two of them, they're going to have to get 17, 18, 19, 20 carries a game probably. And if Jeremy McNichols can give you a little bit more, Dontrell Hilliard can give you a little bit more, great. That's fine. But it is going to have to be a running back by committee situation, and we'll have to see how that plays out. Defenses are obviously going to treat this team differently now. You don't have to put 9 guys in the box with Derrick Henry not back there. You can devote more of your attention to trying to stop A.J. Brown, to trying to slow down Julio Jones, which is why it is so vitally important for Julio to get healthy and get out there for the Titans. Because if you don't have him, well, now you're not packing the box to stop Henry. You don't have to worry about Jones if he's standing on the sideline. So now all your attention can be on trying to slow down A.J. Brown. That'll make life really, really difficult for the Titans offense, especially this week in L.A. against Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey and, Von Miller, who they traded for yesterday. Difficult assignment there. Maybe if the Titans were completely healthy, but certainly under these circumstances. So the running game has to do something to keep defenses honest here. But to me, the next several weeks are going to be a real evaluation time in a couple areas. Number one, it's going to be all about Ryan Tannehill. Again, he's got to play more like the Ryan Tannehill we saw each of the last couple of seasons. He just has to. That's the bottom line. He's got to be efficient. He's got to hold on to the ball. He's got to make smart decisions. He has been praised, and rightfully so, for the way he's played since taking over as the starter in Tennessee. He has not been at that level this year. Now, the Titans have still won, and he's been big in some big moments of games at critical times. But overall, the play has dropped off this year. New coordinator. The passing targets look a little bit different. The line hasn't been as good in front of him. But the play has dropped off, and he has to pick that back up because now he's got to carry this team. This isn't Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill playing off of him. And by the way, it's a good proving ground here because a lot of the people around the league, maybe not so much right here in Tennessee, but around the NFL, have looked at what Ryan Tannehill's done the last 2 years and said, well, it's the product of being the quarterback of a Derrick Henry offense. Henry's the guy that makes that thing go, and so he's churning out yards, and the defenses have to focus so much on him that Tannehill's just the quarterback that's making plays off of that. Now, there may be some truth to that. This is definitely Derrick Henry's offense when he's on the field. No question. But when you look at the play of the last couple of years, Ryan Tannehill made some great plays. He won a bunch of games late. As a matter of fact, the win on Sunday was the 13th fourth quarter and overtime winning drive that Tannehill has had since becoming the Titans' starting quarterback. That's more than anybody else in the league during that time. So he's played at an elite level at times. And we need to see that back full-time for Tannehill. And if he does that, maybe all those naysayers around the league that say, oh, it's just Derrick Henry's offense and Tannehill's just kind of a game manager and he's taking advantage of the play action off of that, maybe those naysayers go away. And maybe Ryan Tannehill proves that he is one of the top-tier quarterbacks in the NFL. I think he's certainly played like that since becoming the starter here. Now is his chance to absolutely cement that. Because if he does it without Henry in the backfield, you can no longer say it's about having Henry in the backfield. So this is a big moment for Ryan Tannehill. The other group that it is a massive time for is that offensive line. Because we thought coming into the year that they were one of the strengths of this team. And through 8 games, they've been really good at run blocking. But as we mentioned, not very good in the pass blocking situation. They've given up 24 sacks this year, which is just one less than they gave up all last year in twice as many games. They've got to be better than that. And the other issue that you see, so yes, they've got to continue to run black without Derrick Henry behind them. They've got to keep Ryan Tannehill upright to make sure he stays on the field to direct this team and that they can get the ball to A.J. Brown and Julio Jones and Nick Westbrook-Akina or Marcus Johnson or Chester Rogers or Anthony Firkser. They've got to continue to get better in that aspect of the game. But the other thing you have to look at with this line is the injury factor. Taylor Lewan has missed a bunch of games from the middle of last season to now. Roger Saffold has struggled to finish games this season. Ben Jones has played through pain seemingly every week. Last week, Nate Davis went out injured. The only guy who really hasn't had injury issues is David Quesenberry at right tackle. And he's the guy that at this point is probably the weakest link of the offensive line. So they've got to stay healthy, they've got to stay available and on the field, and they have to play better than we've seen so far. And this is a huge moment for them, not just for this season, but there's a lot of money tied up there. And the Titans have kind of built this offensive line for the future in front of Henry and Tannehill. And depending how they play down the stretch, could go a long way to determining what the future in Tennessee is for Taylor Lewan with the contract that he has, what the future entails for Roger Saffold at his age and dollar value, Ben Jones at his age, Nate Davis, who's coming towards the end of his rookie contract, and of course for Quessenberry, who is kind of the surprising winner of the right tackle job. And you certainly would have to think is not necessarily a shoo-in to be the plan at right tackle for 2022. So those guys have a lot riding on the line here, because it's not just about sustaining the success of this season, keeping the Titans on the winning track, leading them to this division title that we all expect them to get to, even without Derrick Henry at this point. But it's also about the future for those guys. It's about the next paycheck or the next contract, or being able to stay in Tennessee, where they've put down roots. So big games coming up for Ryan Tannehill, for this offensive line, and really the entire Titans team. But those are the two areas that I'm focused on. 737-7767 is the number. We want to get your phone calls in on the program tonight. And we begin with Eric. Eric, good evening and welcome to SportsLine.
Hey, good evening, Steve. I'm just listening to you, and you bring up some very, very valid points, and I just want to give my thoughts and observations. First of all, I've heard from so many different Titans fans and on radio shows and different things, and it's one way or the other. There's some people think with Derrick Henry gone, our season's done. Other people say, oh, no matter what, we're still going to get the Super Bowl. But here's my thoughts on this. Well, I understand, I saw a guest report ESPN the other day that Derrick Henry was like 55% of this team's offense. I think second was Alvin Kamara at 49, and third was Christian McCaffrey at 48%. But here's my thoughts on this. I don't want to say that we're done for. I will say this. I think we're going to be okay. I don't think the Colts are going to catch us. I don't think we're going to fall on our face that way. And I still think, of course, we'll make the playoffs. We can probably win a playoff game, but I just want to take it one game at a time. I think, though, that this offense probably is going to have to be very, very creative to try and win some football games, whether it's play action pass, whether it's short runs, whatever we do, screen passes, whatever we do. Because I heard somebody else made the point, well, Carson Wentz was the MVP. He went down. And, of course, they brought in Nick Foles, and they were on the run and won the Super Bowl, which that is true. But I'm sure the offensive line play was a huge part of that. And their offensive line surely was healthy and probably played a lot better than ours. The thing was so wild is when we went to the AFC Championship game just a couple years ago, our offensive line was one of the best in the NFL, if not the best. I think Dallas was probably number one. We were maybe number two in the NFL when we went to the AFC Championship game a few years ago. And you're right. With all the injuries and issues we've got, this offensive line has got to be better, because I heard that Tannehill, after the game, when he went out, I guess the next to last play at the end of regulation, I heard that he had some sort of neck injury. And if he gets killed, we are done for if he goes down. I just think that they're going to have to do something with that. I don't know, whatever issues they can, trick plays, whatever, just play call to help us out in that area, because, you can't lose a guy like Derrick Henry and just think, well, everything's going to be the same, because it most assuredly is not. It's not going to be the same. And like I said, I'm not ready to give up on the season or anything like that, but I just think it's going to take some imaginative play calling by the coaches and by the coaching staff to try and get this team over the hump, to do what is necessary. Certainly defensively, you got to play better. But the one thing you don't want is your quarterback getting killed. And if that's happened, we are in very, very serious trouble.
Yeah, nobody wants to see Logan Woodside taking over this team on a full-time basis at this point, especially without Derrick Henry in the backfield with him. Good stuff there, Eric. Thanks for the call tonight. And he mentioned sort of the all-or-nothing approach that people have taken to this, that either the Titans are still going to be fine and go win the Super Bowl, or the season's over because Derrick Henry's out. The truth is somewhere in between there. There's no way the Titans win the Super Bowl unless Derrick Henry comes back and looks like Derrick Henry again. But the season's also not over. This team has a 3-game lead, and in essence, it's a 4-game lead on the Colts in the AFC South because they own the head-to-head advantage. They've won both games already. So even if the Titans only go 3-6 the remainder of the way, and remember, they have 2 games left against the 1-win Texans, another game against the 1-win Jaguars, and another game against the 1-win Dolphins. They have 4 of their remaining 9 games against 1-win teams. We've got a couple other home games in there. Winning 3 games should almost be guaranteed, even given the loss of Derrick Henry. And I think obviously the goal is to win more than that. But even if they only go 3-6, the Titans would finish the season at 9-8. And if that happens, the Colts would have to go 7-2 down the stretch, and their schedule is significantly harder. They would have to go 7-2 to surpass the Titans to get to 10 wins and win the division. So you feel really good right now about the Titans' chances, even without Derrick Henry, of winning the AFC South and getting back to the playoffs. And by that point, you hope there's a shot that you have Henry back on the field. Now, what that looks like, coming back from the injury, has he had a couple of weeks to work himself back, either in practice or getting a few game reps? And even with that, does that mean he can give you 12 carries, 15 carries, 20 carries? Because it's probably a stretch to imagine he comes back from this injury and right away in round 1 of the playoffs he can carry it 30, 31, 32 times like we've seen before. So you have that question there as well. But if you can get him back and you can get him back close to what he's been, I think there actually is the potential that this stretch could help the Titans in a playoff scenario. Because as we mentioned earlier, this has been Derrick Henry's team to this point of the year. He has carried them on his broad shoulders and his strong legs through the ups and downs on the offensive line, through the interceptions that Tannehill has had, through the absence of the receivers at times. He has made sure this team has gotten to this place where they are 6-2 and right now the number 1 seed in the AFC. They're going to have to deal without him for 6, 7, maybe 8 or 9 games. And I agree with Eric, the caller. Todd Downing is going to have to do some work here. He's going to have to ensure they still get the play action going. He's going to have to get both A.J. Brown and Julio Jones going. He's going to have to keep the running game going to a degree. And he's going to have to get tricky. He's going to have to get creative. He's going to have to make defenses think about some new things when it comes to this offense. But here's the positive of that, is if you do get Derrick Henry back, anything like himself, for when you get into the playoffs, that experience of having to do the other things, of having to have the counter, of playing as a pass-first offense at times, I think could go a long way for this team in the postseason. Because even when you think about the last 2 years, as good as Ryan Tannehill played, when the Titans got to the playoffs, it was all about establishing Derrick Henry. And you understand why? Because he's a superstar. He was on pace to be in the running, if not win, MVP of the league this year. That's the type of player he is. But when you get into the playoffs, you have to be able to do it all. You have to have that passing game going. And the Titans really haven't in the last 2 postseasons. As successful as they were in 2019, Tannehill made a couple throws here and there. But the numbers are not about a passing offense. It is about a historic postseason run by Derrick Henry. If they get to this postseason and the passing game has been clicking and this offense has had to do some other things and now you throw Henry back in, that could potentially be really scary, and it might force what we've been hoping for from the beginning with the Julio Jones signing. We have all been dreaming about the day that you get 20 to 22 to 23 carries of Derrick Henry going for over 100 yards. And you get A.J. Brown and Julio Jones with 6 or 7 catches each in a passing game that defenses don't know what to do, who to bracket, who to shade, all that sort of stuff. If the Titans can get the passing game going now without Henry and then add him back into the mix, maybe we finally see what we've all been waiting for. Now, that is the real glass half full ceiling here. The Titans have to survive over the next 9 weeks. And for that to happen, it's on Tannehill. It's on the offensive line. It's on Todd Downing. It's on everybody to step up, to be more creative, to be more physical, to be more efficient, to be more available in some cases. It's on everybody to fill the void here. But if they can do that, and they can do it successfully, there's a shot that when Henry comes back and gets integrated back in, it's possible this offense looks a little different, but maybe looks even better. Maybe it looks even better. Because even with the additions of the passing game to this point, this has largely been a running offense this season. If they get to that balance point come the playoffs, maybe that changes the Titans' chances. Anyway, it's going to be a very interesting few weeks, and it starts with those guys in the backfield. We got to take a break. When we come back, more of your phone calls, 737-7767, the number. We've got a wide open bank of lines for you. Do you want to be next up? This is SportsLine on News Channel 5+.